Mr Chair.
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Chair, I think the member opposite first raised the issue of lame ducks, and on that note, Mr Chair, I'd first like to say happy birthday to Trevor Mallard. I understand it's a big birthday today. Secondly, Mr Chair, speaking of lame ducks, I see his leader is certainly struggling along in a way that could only be described as lame ducks. Mr Speaker, the member is often guilty of over-egging the story, and unfortunately he therefore ends up pretending a case which is not so. And in fact, he went on this huge conspiracy chat for the last 5 minutes about how it was all some sort of ideological conspiracy, which of course it isn't, Mr Chair. And fundamentally, oh, be quiet, parrot. Well, Mr Chair, I can't give his...
Order. Yeah, no, order. Please. Now it's sort of an equal-handed kind of set of events here. The member was perhaps interjecting rather too much, and the minister on his feet should have used appropriate terminology in addressing the person. So if we just... Minister will continue, and let's just keep some decorum.
I apologise for the avian references, Mr Chair. The situation is simply this, is that you have, as we have with many of our Crown research institutes, we have organisations which have historically had large numbers of assets, many of which are old, many of which are built around the 40s or 50s or inherited from other purposes. Shh, you'll learn something. And many of them have large amounts of land, but they also need to modernise their facilities to attract new staff. And it's true of AgResearch, it's true of Plant and Food, it's true of Land Care and so on. And so they're all dealing with the challenge of modernising their assets to attract not just the existing generation of scientists, but the new generation of scientists that they need to bring into those organisations. And so AgResearch has embarked on this process and have proposed $100 million of investment in their organisation to bring their facilities up to speed and to be modern facilities. And as part of that, they've proposed some changes in the configuration of their institutes. They never proposed to close Invermay. They have proposed to move some staff groups, and they have been through a long and rigorous process in terms of how they would finalise those particular proposals. And they've landed in a space which I think many critics have found to be a significant improvement in terms of what they originally proposed, and that's an important part of processes that you consider and you put forward proposals, and you then you respond to the feedback of those. So they have proposed at this time they're going to retain the Invermay farms and the Ballantrae Hill Country farms. They're going to retain the existing farm systems deer researchers at Invermay, which I think makes a lot of sense. They're strengthening the deer team at Invermay. They're retaining the herd, obviously, at Invermay. They're transferring the sheep flock from Woodlands to Invermay. They're also combining with more Otago University staff, which of course was the original promise of the Christie building, that there would be some Otago University staff located in Invermay. That's now going to happen. And they have invited some of the regional players who have significant science teams of their own in the area of environmental science to co-locate at Invermay as well to build up that. And I'm hoping that the Southland Regional Council and the Otago Regional Council take them up on that opportunity, because I actually think that would save money for the ratepayers of both regions, as well as actually building a real centre of excellence in this environmental science area. So I think they have landed positively. I appreciate that Mr Clark will never be happy. Interesting though, we haven't had a call so far from Mr Lees Galloway, who's more than happy about the shifts that advantage the Palmerston North area. And that's one of these things where one end of the Labor Party speaks out of one side of its mouth and the other speaks out the other side. In fact, I think the leader of the Labor Party was in Palmerston North committing to the investment in the Palmerston North campus at the same time as his little friend Mr Clark was down in Dunedin condemning the change. So I think the challenge of all of that is the Labor Party are basically saying, depending on which part of the country, and there'll either be no change or lots of change, but they don't need any more money, and I think that's another circle they're going to struggle to square, Mr Chair. The other thing I just note in passing is that this government is making very big investments in the science sector in Dunedin. There's been two very positive front-page articles in the ODT in the last couple of weeks. The two new centres of research excellence that are being picked up at Otago University, and also the doubling of health research that the university has picked up in the current year. These are things that, interestingly, haven't been greeted with great public relations releases positively from the member, but that's the way these things go, Mr Chair.
So the question is that the report of the Education and Science Committee on the 2012-13 financial review of AgResearch Limited be noted. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. Members, we move now to the Education and Science Review report on the Callaghan Institute.